So, quick story just to set the scene before we start. It'll be short, I promise. When I was younger, I was absolutely terrified of the Asian horror aesthetic. The hair, the ghostly little kids with distorted faces, the creeping ambiance and sense of dread and despair. It all hit me right in my youthful emotion testicles. I even remember freaking out once because I was home alone reading my newest copy of Electronic Gaming Monthly, and an article discussing the then upcoming release of Fear showed a picture of the girl from The Ring as a comparison to Alma from the game. I had to run outside because I was too scared to stay in the house. This is all 100% true. Of course, as I grew up, I realized poverty and existential dread were way more real and immediate terrors, but I still have a couple dozen J and K horror DVDs as a monument to that not insubstantial chunk of my life. Now, you may be saying to yourself, oh, hi, by the way, this is happening now. You may be saying to yourself, well, Dave, that's a wonderful anecdote, but what does it have to do with the video? And by the way, you smell wonderful, which, first off, thank you. As for the second part, it has to do with an explanation for why I have never gotten around to Fatal Frame, even though 2000s PS2 era horror games are right in my wheelhouse. The truth is, I was too much of a chicken shit to do it, and by the time I had gotten over my fear, it was way too late and it had joined the backlog like many of its PS2 era brethren. Which is a shame, really, because, frankly, Fatal Frame rocks. While it has certain technical issues, it has an absolutely incredible atmosphere, a solid plot, amazing sound design, and a central gameplay hook that, when it's working well, is extremely tense and involving. Before we dive in fully, if you end up liking what you see here, the video, not me, or me, either way, whatever works. But if you like what you see and you want to see more, then perhaps like, subscribe, if you can, or just share it around, tell your friends. We are currently rotting in YouTube's Your Channel is too small to show viewers whole, and any help getting out would be greatly appreciated. And with that out of the way, let's start off this spooky month Let's start the spooky month out right. Speaking of kickoffs, the game really doesn't waste a single second. Not even a minute in, and
I wonder how long it's been since my brother and I began to see things other people can't see.
Jesus, lady, I just wanted a hot dog. It's 1986, and we join Mafuyu Hinasaki on his way to the infamous Himuro Mansion, hoping to find word of his mentor, Junsei Takamine, a famous novelist who went to the mansion in the hopes of finding inspiration for his next horror novel. Mafuyu's sister, Miku, tells us through narration how awesome and caring and super he is, and fair enough, he's definitely got that orphan chutzpah going on. Oh, they're orphans, by the way. The mansion in question is known throughout Japan to be a wretched pit of bad juju, and the aura is certainly not helped by this grainy black and white filter and extreme lack of light sources. I have no goddamn idea where I'm going. You can't have a scene in black and white and have the lighting be this bad. While the filter will be gone after the prologue, this does give us our first taste of what is probably my more subjective issue with the game. To put it bluntly, shit's too damn dark. Now look, I know this is super subjective. Well, I mean all reviews are subjective, but this in particular is something that will probably vary with setup and generally just how good your eyes are. For my part, one of my eyes is literally the wrong shape, so things can be bleary on a good day, and especially on old pre-HD televisions. But what is less of a me thing is coupling that lighting with the fixed camera angles. Now, for the record, the fixed angles in this game are actually pretty dope. They make great use of negative space and blocking to make you feel super small or claustrophobic in the frame, and sometimes the perspective will change suddenly to resemble someone looking out at you from a hallway or from a closet, like they're getting ready to attack, but then next time you pass by that area, nothing will happen. It all serves to turn the screws on you, make you feel just a little bit more paranoid, a little bit more unsafe. But as cool as that is, there are also many, many times where I had adjusted to the lighting in the scene, only for the camera to suddenly switch to an angle that blocked the beam of my flashlight, leaving the screen almost completely dark and me scrambling to even figure out where I was. Its use for atmosphere enhancement is class as all hell, but it can make navigating especially longer hauls a bit of a pain. Oh yeah, Mafuyu. After a bit of searching, Mafuyu finds some old films, some journal scraps, a bit of medicine, and the undead. Luckily, he has his trusty ghost-busty camera on him, back to that in a second, and manages to repel the specter. Unfortunately, a meeting with a far more malevolent and gropey ghost doesn't go as well, and suddenly a week has passed as we find Miku approaching a rather familiar, dilapidated mansion. The Find My Brother plot is pretty inoffensive, standard, but inoffensive. Much more interesting is the history of the Himuro family and their mansion. As you could probably tell from the inhabitants, some real nasty, untoward shit has happened in that place. The nature and scope of which is revealed through everything from cutscenes to tapes to news articles. Unfortunately, or perhaps fortunately, this is still a very early 2000s horror game, and despite the painstaking work the sound and visuals do to create a feeling of queasy dread, the distinct writing and acting choices of the time threaten to derail the whole thing into B-movie chintz.
I captured a ghost with this camera. This camera has the power to expose things the normal eye can't see. I remember the incident from which I learned of its unique power to capture ghosts.
While most of the articles and journals are actually fairly creepy and do a good job filling out backstory and enhancing the mood, with some of the described events and rituals being genuinely gruesome and disturbing, some of the logs are credulous to the point of comedy. One of my assistants was decapitated and my other assistant is muttering to herself constantly and seems like she's lost her mind. Oh well, no biggie. Oh, it seems my editor has developed rope wounds all over his body. Can this have anything to do with the rope curse? Nah, I'm sure it'll be fine. Accidental. He accidentally ripped off his arms, his legs, and his head. Hey, don't laugh. Once I tripped slightly while walking down the stairs. Suddenly, I'm deaf in my left ear, and my right pinky flies off my finger at 30 miles an hour. Killed the neighbor's dog. That story is 100% true. There's typos, weird syntax, strange turns of phrase, all sorts of little glitches that they don't take me out of the game, but they make me lose my footing, if that makes any sense. The voice acting is equally feast or famine. Dialogue is sometimes exceptionally clunky and wooden, the most common offender being Miku herself. But other times, the distorted wailing and distant, ghostly chittering of the spirits is genuinely unnerving. A good, tormented shriek goes a long way. Luckily, whenever I fell out, the mansion pulled me right back in. As I mentioned, Casa de Himuro is extremely unlit, and while I stand by my criticism, I must also admit that the lighting pulls its weight in gold. Swearing you see things moving in the dark, dimly lit furniture or clothing near a wall that makes you double-take the flashlight, cutting through the darkness as you hug the walls looking for hidden doors. You certainly can't accuse Fatal Frame of not committing to the bit. Even better is the game's overall soundscape. This is some grade A spooky shit right here, and it does tremendous heavy lifting for the atmosphere. The music as it is has pretty much two settings: creepy traditional Japanese instrumentation or droning mood sounds, although there is that absolutely incredible main menu theme, which is so over the top I feel it would be more at home in something like Illbleed instead of an ostensibly serious ghost story like this. Still, while they do their part, it's the moment-to-moment sound design that steals the show. The uncomfortably sharp clangs of the camera, the footsteps that you can swear are not yours, distant creaks and groans of the structure, faint laughter and pleads and growls that keep you on your toes constantly. Rooms can have everything from eerie whistles of indoor wind to absolute silence, all the way to low-pitched demonic chanting with no discernible source. No, sir. Do not like that at all. It's constantly tense and unnerving, with the jump scares of benign ghosts and meetings with spookyhead.pngs being more relief than frustrating. Although the gameplay is not devoid of friction that even the game's myriad environmental strengths cannot smooth out. Yep, we're 3/4 of the way through this, and it's finally time to talk about how you actually play the game. Despite what you may have figured, Fatal Frame does not, in fact, have tank controls. What we got instead is full analog control with one very strange addition. See, pressing and holding square will speed your character up into a light power walk instead of the plodding trot they usually do. However, the forward movement is automatic. You can just point the character in a direction, press the button, and they'll move forward, kind of like a limited autopilot. You'll find the normal assortment of survival horror items, health recovers, special stones that bring you back if you maintain a fatal wound, the above-mentioned lore logs. I particularly like the audio logs you sometimes find. Some are kind of dry, while others are legitimately unsettling.
I've been through several rooms already. Unlike the I've been through several rooms already. Unlike the I've been through several rooms already.
You'll solve puzzles, some of which are traditional read the document and press the right button bits, while others are fetch quests, which actually brings us to the star of the gameplay loop, the camera obscura. Yep, turns out Mafuyu was just carrying around this little bit of occult paraphernalia, which, when combined with the siblings' powers, allows them to do all sorts of weird psychic shit. There is, of course, the ghost-slaying applications, which we will get to in a second, but it's also useful for environmental navigation. The game has a haptic feedback-based hint system where the controller will vibrate like a heartbeat and a sign will appear on screen to tell you that something nearby could be photographed. Sometimes it's a harmless ghost, like girl pointing and monk in dark or woman stuck in thing, who, if you're quick enough, you can snap for some extra points. Again, we'll get to that in a second. Other, more interesting times, you'll be prompted to photograph something like a padlock or a talisman or a chest, which will instead show up on the film as the place the item you need is, like the location of a hand mirror showing up in the photo, so you can go get it and bring it back to the bedroom to progress. The big headline use for the thing, however, is to protect yourself. The unquiet dead of the estate can sometimes get a little rowdy, necessitating the use of the camera and associated exorcismal film stock to fight back. Pressing circle brings you into Finder mode, which is basically a first-person HUD mode, where you target ghosts and snap photos to cause damage. However, wildly clicking that shot button will do very little for you. Instead, the game encourages patience and calm, even in the midst of the incredibly stressful sights, sounds, and startlements of the average encounter. The longer you keep a ghost in view, and the more of these little sigils you build up, the harder you'll hit, and the more points you'll get to spend on upgrades like range and build speed. Ghosts are blessed with no-clip and can freely move in and out of walls and floor, and even just straight turn invisible, not to mention they can just come out of stairs, closets, drop out of the damn sky and start shit if they want to. Keeping the ghosts in view and yourself out of their reach is the big combat challenge, and here we get to the best and worst part of the gameplay. On one hand, encounters can be surprisingly thrilling and energetic. In Finder mode, you can still move yourself around using the right analog stick, but you're not exactly Gordon Freeman, and it's more for adjusting your position in the environment to keep yourself maybe out of corners. Keeping your cool and locking in on a particularly squirmy or dodgy ghost, letting the damage build, and waiting for just the right moment to snap a shot for maximum impact while the warbling shrieks and rants of the ghosts swirl around you. It makes for genuinely intense supernatural encounters. Unfortunately, the game's rather stiff mobility options inject not insubstantial amounts of frustration into proceedings. Miku has a nasty habit of getting stuck on the environment, even in normal navigation. The problem is exacerbated in high-stress situations or in Finder mode, where you'll be trying to evade attacks that can knock off almost half a life bar in one go, but you can't move because apparently only one half of that piece of uneven terrain can be walked over. Theoretically, you're supposed to drop out of Finder mode, reposition yourself, and jump back in to attack, but the tremendous start and end lag on the movement animation means that by the time you've stopped, turned, and lifted the camera again, the ghost is right in your face. I'm generally a fan of restricted movement options in these kinds of games. They increase tension and force tactical thinking. But this doesn't feel like it was intentional design, and while it's usually only a mild annoyance, on some of the speedier ghosts it threatens to nearly torpedo the experience. As a gameplay experience, Fatal Frame is not perfect, and in fact can be quite frustrating at times. The twitchy controls, the dodgy collision detection, and the off lighting sometimes can hurt the atmosphere more than it builds any actual tension, but in light of everything it does well, I still really enjoyed it. I'm actually upset it took me so long to get around to it. The sights and especially the sounds of Himuro Mansion suck the player into an unsettling, paranoia-induced nightmare land filled with some of the best atmosphere construction of its time, a strength that still holds even to this day. From jump scares to quiet apprehension, the game makes sure you never feel safe or calm. And when the comparatively welcome catharsis of combat or standard environmental investigation do make their way in, they are both possessed of enough novel touches to keep proceedings brisk and engaging. So if ghouls and spirits are more your speed than demons and goblins, if tempered mood trumps explosive gore, and you're looking for something to get under your skin, you could do much worse than Tecmo's early aughts horror classic. The spooky season festivities are just beginning. Stay tuned for more grim and ghastly delights all through October. See y'all soon. So, fun fact, did you know that if you leave the game paused for a while, bloody handprints just start filling up your screen?